The OCD and Anxiety Podcast by Robert James Coaching. Hello and welcome to the OCD and Anxiety Podcast, where we explore how to have a more positive relationship with anxiety disorders, taking back control so that you can start living the life you choose and not the one chosen by your fears. Hello and welcome to episode 372, where today we're going to be exploring all about the breath and how we can use the breath to help with OCD and anxiety. And if you are looking for some help with OCD and anxiety, then you can get a free session with me. To get that, you can head over to my website, robertjamescoaching.com. There you can book in for that free session directly, or if you prefer, you can send me a message and let me know about what you're struggling with. Now, if you would like to get a personalized podcast from me answering, in fact, any of your questions, you can actually sign up for the Patreon. There's different tiers starting from just a couple of dollars a month. And yeah, in return for that, you get extra content. Like I say, I can actually create podcasts specifically for you and any questions that you might have. So if you're interested in that, you can follow the Patreon link in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to sign up to Instagram, you can. My Instagram handle's at Robert James Coaching UK. There's also the Facebook group, and the podcast is also on YouTube. Follow, like, all of that stuff, please. It really does help the podcast. So many thanks. I really hope that you enjoy this one, and off we go. Here's a quote from Yoko Ono to get us started today, and it is this. When people ask me what the most important thing is in life, I answer, just breathe. And, you know, it's a fairly good answer, because obviously if you don't do that, you're going to be in big trouble. But, you know, I think it's also a little bit annoying because, you know, it's almost like when people talk about acceptance, we hear about acceptance all the time. You know, you need to accept your anxiety, accept your obsessions and your fears, and things will get easier. And sometimes it can be frustrating because it's not always that clear how to accept things. And another thing we get told a lot is, you know, you need to breathe better. You need to learn how to use meditation or breathwork to help you. But it can be quite confusing, actually, to know exactly how to do that, and also to kind of actually commit to doing that. So I'm going to talk about some of the approaches that I actually kind of find helpful in today's podcast. Well, I wanted to share another quote before we start. So this is a Sanskrit proverb, and it is this: for breath is life. So if you breathe well, you will live long on earth. And for me, I like this quote. I do think it's true. I think when we breathe better, it gives us better health. But for me, it's really about the quality of life. You know, whilst we are here on this earth, we want to be living as well as possible. We want to be, you know, really focusing on our values, our goals, you know, focusing on the things that we love in life, and not focusing on the avoidance of fear, the avoidance of anxiety, you know, and breathing well can really help us to do just that. The breath is something that has really profoundly helped me in my own journey with OCD and anxiety. Back in the day when I was really struggling, I think I was breathing, you know, really quite badly. I was, you know, often when we do get anxiety, what tends to happen is we're breathing in more of a shallow way. We are really focused on kind of getting rid of our problems, on, you know, getting rid of the obsessions. And this creates this kind of tension in the body. You know, when we're constantly fighting with our anxieties, what we're really doing is our sympathetic nervous system is activated. We're in this kind of fight, flight, or freeze mode, but we're kind of in it all day long. We're ruminating all the time. And when that happens, well, your body is releasing stress hormones into the blood. It's releasing cortisol. It's releasing adrenaline. And so, it's no wonder that we end up feeling very, very anxious. And it's a vicious circle. You feel anxious, and so you ruminate to try to get rid of it. That leads to kind of you feeling more anxious, and it's this really horrible cycle that we can get stuck in with OCD. And, back in the day, I didn't really have any techniques to help me. I didn't even know that I had OCD for a long time. And, this cycle just kind of continued. And it wasn't until I came into touch with meditation and mindfulness that I started to realize just how powerful the breath can be in order to kind of calm us down, to actually activate, for example, the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system. And that is amazing. If you're able to activate that parasympathetic state, well, that's the complete opposite, obviously, of the, of being in that fight or flight mode. We're able to actually bring a sense of relaxation and calm to the body. We're able to kind of process some of those stress hormones a little bit because we're learning to slow everything right down. When we're in the midst of OCD, everything is sped up. Our thoughts are going very quick. Often our heart rate is actually raised. Our breathing is a bit quicker, and it tends to be more shallow. We're having all of these physical effects. And actually, just by slowing the breath right down on purpose, breathing more deeply, which we're going to get into in just a minute, well, actually, you begin to feel a little bit better. Of course, it's not going to cure everything, but it gives us more perspective on things. It allows us to see things from a different angle, a different perspective, and to perhaps, let go of some of those thoughts and some of those things that are holding us back. And so really focusing on breath work and different types of breath work and meditation can be incredibly helpful for OCD. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that over the years have been very helpful for me. The first is very simple. It's kind of mindful meditation, and you can do some research. There's so many different mindfulness teachers out there these days, really good ones. One that was very helpful for me is Jon Kabat-Zinn. He has so many different books about meditation and mindfulness if you want to research him. Or there's also like the apps, of course, like Headspace. There's so many these days. So, for me, mindful meditation can be very helpful because obviously it teaches us how to focus our attention using the breath. And it reminds us that the breath is an anchor. It's something that is always there for us when we find ourselves feeling a little bit out of control, feeling like our thoughts are too busy. Well, actually, we can use the breath to focus our attention on to, rather than trying to get rid of the thoughts, which of course, is a compulsion in OCD. When we get caught up in rumination, what we're actually doing is we're trying to get rid of the uncomfortable feeling of anxiety through battling with our thoughts. And, of course it doesn't work. And one of the best things you can actually learn to do is taken from kind of mindfulness, which is this idea of instead of trying to get rid of things, we just refocus our attention back onto the present moment. And in mindfulness, that is normally the breath. And so, practicing that skill through meditation of just paying attention to your breath, noticing either perhaps the stomach or the nostrils, noticing the air coming in and out. And anytime you get distracted, you just bring your attention back. And what you're doing by doing that is you're training this ability, this innate ability that everybody has, to actually refocus your attention back onto the present and away from whatever it is that you might be getting anxious about. And the more that you practice that, the better you're going to be. And, people, I think, often have misconceptions when it comes to meditation and mindfulness. You're not going to be perfect at it, and you may not get a relaxed feeling whilst you're doing it. Really, the whole purpose of it from my experience is whenever you get distracted, and if you're anything like me, you're most probably going to get distracted quite a lot. The idea is to try to remain calm, try not to be judgmental about that, and to keep bringing your attention back to the object of your focus, normally the breath. And like that, you're developing this ability to focus your attention where you need it to be. And that's incredibly helpful for OCD. So much of the time with OCD, our attention is being stolen from us. The OCD, like this horrible monster that it is actually kind of just saying, no, put your attention on this bizarre thought. Pay attention to this weird thing. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to be pushed around by this kind of OCD bully. We want to determine where our attention goes, and we can develop that through practicing meditation. Now, it doesn't always have to be the breath. Of course, you can pay attention to different things, but obviously today's focus is more on the breath. Something else that has been incredibly helpful for me, and you've probably heard me talking about it a lot, is the Wim Hof method breath work. Now, something to just mention about this is a really powerful and profound breath work. It's not something that I would recommend that you practice every day like you might do with other types of breathing. It's something that you need to be very careful about. When we're doing Wim Hof breathing, you can get dizzy, you can get faint. It involves holding the breath. So you should never, ever, ever do it in water or near the water. You should always do it at home, lying on the floor on a yoga mat, to make sure that you're doing it in a safe way. And ideally, you would actually go and learn it from a Wim Hof instructor. But it's something that's been very helpful for me, because actually when we're doing this kind of Wim Hof breathing, we can really learn how to relax the body. You're kind of playing. When you're doing this very profound deep breathing, you're actually activating the sympathetic nervous system. But then during the breath hold, you move into more of a kind of parasympathetic state. And it's this play between those two nervous systems and the release of different hormones whilst you're doing this breath work that actually leaves you with this incredibly relaxed feeling afterwards. It also tends to be something where a lot of people have interesting emotional kind of moments or breakthroughs whilst they're doing this type of breath work. People kind of report having breakthroughs with emotional blocks that they might have had for a long time. So there's all sorts of interesting things that are going on with it. Lots of people have, fascinating anecdotal stories where, they've been struggling with, the death of a loved one in a family, and perhaps during that breath work, they have an experience of that person or of the emotion that they've been pushing down about that event for a long time, and suddenly they find that they're able to mourn that person properly, whereas maybe for a long time they've been pushing all of that away and pushing that down. And that release of energy can be incredibly helpful for people. So, there's all sorts of different benefits that people report from practicing the Wim Hof method breathing, like more energy, and one of the big things that science is pointing to actually with the Wim Hof method, both the breath work and the cold exposure, is that it can be very helpful for inflammation and lowering inflammation in the body. There was a study done by the Radboud University in the Netherlands that found that when people are trained in the Wim Hof method, afterwards, after they do the techniques, they measured the blood of these participants, and they found that they actually had a huge number of anti-inflammatory markers in the blood, and much less pro-inflammatory markers. And that research has actually been repeated by many different studies now, showing again that the breath work and the cold exposure is really helpful for inflammation. And, this is amazing because so many autoimmune diseases and different types of disease in general are actually caused by inflammation in the body. So the fact that you can influence that through the breath is really interesting. It also obviously has implications for mental health because, inflammation, generally speaking, in the body is not going to be helping either with mental health. So if we can lower inflammation, it's such a good thing that we can do overall for our holistic health. Another and perhaps more accessible breath work that you can do every day that I highly recommend that you do every day, in fact, is just a very simple type of breath work that I routinely try to do 3 or 4 times a day. And all it is taking 10 very deep and slow breaths. I often say to people, why not set an alarm on your phone where you remind yourself to do this type of breathing 3 or 4 times a day? Because so often, we're just getting caught up in our head. We're getting caught up in our thoughts. We have this activated sympathetic response all the time, and it's causing stress in the body. And actually, just by routinely 3 or 4 times a day, checking in with your breath for 10 breaths and slowing it right down. What you're doing is you're creating a bit more of a parasympathetic nervous response. You're helping yourself to feel more relaxed. You're helping to slow everything down, slow down the thoughts, slow down the body. And it just enables us and helps us to, to kind of breathe a little bit better, throughout the day. And so, whether that's for 10 breaths or 20 breaths, if you can do it for 5 minutes, that's going to make even more of a positive impact. If you can do it for 10 minutes, even better. But often we don't have that much time. And so even just 10 breaths, 3 or 4 times a day is going to help you to feel a little bit better. So I'm going to kind of show you how to do this type of breath work. Now, what we do is we just make sure that we're breathing very slowly but deeply, and we breathe as low as possible down into the belly, then breathing up into the chest, and we're breathing in through the nose. So very slow breathing down into the belly, up into the chest, and then on the exhale, we're trying to extend the exhale to make it very slightly longer than the inhale, breathing out through the mouth. It doesn't have to be exact though. We're not counting. And then we just repeat that. So, doing 10 breaths or more or less 10 breaths, slowing everything down just for a minute or two. And, you will notice the difference when we are in that kind of OCD state. We're not allowing ourselves to do this kind of thing. We're just kind of perpetually thinking about the problems. Our shoulders might be up. We're feeling this tension. And just by anchoring yourself in the present for a few moments, by focusing on your breath in this way, you can really help yourself to just calm down. I really recommend that you experiment with it. If you want to kind of practice maybe doing 5 minutes of it whilst you're at home, that can be a really good idea too. Just a safety reminder, again, make sure if you are doing meditation or breath work that you do it in a safe way, never when you're operating machinery or driving or anything like that. But yeah, it can be something, when you're practicing it on a regular basis, you start to see the difference. You start to realize, okay, I've got this tool. I've got the breath. It's always with me. I can use it as my ally. It's something that's there for me. If I allow myself to tune into it and just slow it right down every now and then. You don't need to be paying attention to it all the time, but just, 1 or 2 minutes, a few times a day. And it may well make a big difference to kind of how you feel when you do get caught up in your thoughts. So there we go, guys. I really hope that you found that one helpful. If you have any questions at all about anything I've spoken about today, do please let me know. There'll be some links to references and things in the show notes. So yeah, I look forward to seeing you next time. Just a quick reminder that if you want to get a free session, all you need to do to get that is to head over to my website, www.robertjamescoaching.com. And there you can leave me a message and we can arrange the free session. And now just a quick reminder of my disclaimer. Any information that you view on my website, Instagram page, Facebook group, or anywhere else online, or any information that you listen to on the podcast is for informational purposes only. and is not intended to be a substitute for actual medical or mental health advice from a doctor, psychologist, or any other medical or mental health professional.